Ecuadorians across the country have taken to the streets to protest against the government of Lenin Moreno. Polls have closed and vote counting is underway in Suriname's parliamentary elections. The African Union announced it hopes to raise $1 million for its COVID-19 response fund on Africa Day. From the headquarters of Tell Us Your English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Ernesto Dominguez. Ecuadorians across the country have taken to the streets to protest against the government of Lenin Moreno. In Quito, workers' unions and teachers gathered near the presidential palace to reject economic measures recently imposed by the government. Protesters say the coronavirus crisis has only affected lower and middle-income families, while the rich has been left mostly unfazed. They only rejected the government's neoliberal policies and vowed to continue protesting until their demands are met.
The president is lying to the country. He says we are the first country to invest heavily in the health sector to fight COVID-19, but it is a lie. He speaks of education, but has laid off more than 6,000 teachers and is cutting their salaries. Meanwhile, large companies will pay nothing during the crisis. This is a government that only takes care of big businesses, bankers, and the International Monetary Fund. We are all against these neoliberal measures. We will continue mobilizing until justice is achieved. The working class shouldn't have to carry the burden of the crisis.
Later, protesters were repressed by police forces as they tried to reach the presidential palace. Hundreds of people in Santo Domingo Square were blocked by police vehicles and faced tear gas. In Suriname, polls have closed and counting is underway for parliamentary elections. Parliamentary results are expected to be announced tomorrow. The elections took place on Monday under strict health measures due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Voting was extended across the country by 2 hours due to delays. Today's vote will decide the members of the National Assembly, who will then vote for the president. In the Dominican Republic, after 5 days of a gradual reactivation of commercial activities, workers expressed their concern due to the economic crisis resulting from the pandemic. The Dominican government said last Wednesday, May the 20th, is at the start of the first phase of de-escalation of COVID-19 country's situation and gradual reactivation of the economy. However, the state of emergency and curfew remains in place. Informal workers, that represents 56% of the active population, have denounced to be the worst affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Venezuela has reported 64 new coronavirus cases in the last 24 hours. According to Communications Minister Jorge Rodriguez, the Bolivarian nation currently has 1,177 positive cases, 10 deaths, and 302 patients who've recovered so far. 42 of the new cases came from Colombia and Brazil, while 10 of the cases were caused by community transmission. The second of 5 Iranian oil tankers carrying fuel to Venezuela has officially entered the nation's territorial waters. The ship, known as Forest, was made by Venezuelan Navy patrol ships north of Margarita Island and is headed to a refinery in the port of El Palito. The third ship, Petunia, is expected to arrive on May 26. This fleet that set sail from Iran is carrying around 1.5 million barrels of gasoline as the Bolivarian nation suffers from fuel shortages caused by U.S. sanctions. Meanwhile, the U.S. government, which has heavily sanctioned Iran as well, has said it is monitoring the convoy, while Caracas and Tehran have warned the White House not to interfere with the ships in any way. Early on Monday, the first Iranian tanker, the Fortune, arrived at El Palito refinery and was received by Oil Minister Tarek Al-Aissami. More stories coming up after this short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The World Health Organization has paused clinical trials of the anti-malarial drug hydroxychloroquine in COVID-19 patients, adding that the drug, notably endorsed by U.S. President Donald Trump, has raised safety concerns. At the moment, the drug safety data is being reviewed by a monitoring board. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus told reporters that the drug was being tested as part of a program aimed at tackling the COVID-19 pandemic. The move comes after WHO regarded British medical journal, The Lancet, published a study on the side effects of the hydroxychloroquine, highlighting a higher mortality rate among COVID-19 patients that were treated with it. The WHO has previously advised against the widespread use of the drug in the treatment of COVID-19, arguing that it should be reserved solely for clinical trials. However, it has been actively promoted by the U.S. president, who even underwent a 2-week treatment with hydroxychloroquine as a preventive measure against the coronavirus.
The executive group has implemented a temporary pause of the hydroxychloroquine arm within the Solidarity trial, while the safety data is reviewed by the Data Safety Monitoring Board. The other arms of the trial are continuing. In many countries, it has shown that after a certain number of cases, after a certain threshold, it moves like a bushfire, exponential. It did it in China, in Wuhan. It did it in many European countries. And it's doing it now, as you said, in Brazil. It really moves fast. That's why we need to do everything to slow it. And the slowing is mainly in the social measures, social distancing measures that we take. And they have to be as really aggressive as possible to give us.
To the U.S., where the Trump administration's initiative to test nursing home residents and staff members for the novel coronavirus appears to have failed, as half of all states did not fulfill the goals. The initiative was launched by the White House on May 11. State governors were requested to target nursing homes and retirement facilities within 14 days to stop the spread of the COVID-19. But several authorities have argued against the plan, stating that the logistics budget and human resources needed were too high to fulfill the task in the required 2-week period, while others even claim whether the proposal was a good use of time and money. The United States has the highest number of COVID-19 cases in the world, with over 100,000 deaths registered. And Spain is moving forward with the easing of COVID-19 restrictions as phase 1 and 2 are being implemented across the country. Health Minister Salvador Illa has announced that 53% of the population will be under phase 1 conditions, while the remaining 47% will be put under phase 2. The health minister also recalled that a period of 14 days would define whether regions can move from one phase to the next one. Madrid and Barcelona, the main hotspots of COVID-19 in Spain, are slowly returning to normal as social gathering, cultural shows, along with the opening of bars, parks, and beaches are allowed. Spain has recorded over 57,000 COVID-19 cases and a death toll of over 28,000. Greece has restarted the gastronomic and transport sectors as part of the government's arrangement for summer tourism season. Regular ferry services to the Greek islands, along with the reopening of restaurants and bars, were started on Monday, but passengers and occupancy limits have been imposed to avoid new COVID-19 cases. Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis stated that the tourism season would officially begin on June 15, opening the borders for tourists from the regions. Nonetheless, no testing for COVID-19 and no mandatory quarantine will be imposed on new arrivals. The tourism sector is a pillar of Greece's economy, accounting for more than 10% of the GDP. Chinese President Xi Jinping has praised the good job done by local authorities in the fight against COVID-19. She was speaking during the panel discussion with delegates from Hubei province at the annual session of the National People's Congress, China's top legislature. This epidemic is a test of our grassroots governance system and the level of its capacity. It further highlights the role of our grassroots units such as neighborhood offices, community centers, town level and village level committees, epidemic prevention and control rallies and work on two fronts. One is the medical front featuring the role medics. Another is the management front featuring the role of community centers, town level and village level committees. All of them have done a good job. We need to look into our grassroots governance work, look at the success, then reinforce them, find out the deficiencies, then improve them. The lead researcher at the Wuhan Institute of Virology has criticized disinformation and conspiracy theories surrounding the origins of COVID-19, expressing her dismay over the politicization of sciences and calling for greater international cooperation and transparency.
这个给科学搅在一起了，就把科学政治化了，这个是非常遗憾的一件事情。我觉得全世界的科学家都不希望看到目前，因为我前面已经说过，传染病研究是一定是要开放、透明、合作的，国际合作会给我们全人类的这种新发传染病，会提供很好的一个技术支撑，所以这是为全人类服务的，所以我们觉得非常的遗憾。
Vietnam has passed 5 weeks in a row with no new local COVID-19 cases, while active cases figures stand at less than 60. Since the outbreak started, health authorities have reported a total number of 325 cases, out of which 267 have already recovered. But while 58 patients remain in healthcare facilities, the death toll has stayed at 0. The Vietnamese government shut down its northern border in January when COVID-19 cases increased sharply in China and imposed a quarantine period at the end of March. Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc has highlighted that the government will implement new policies to boost the economy and help the most affected people for the rest of 2020. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe announced on Monday the end of the state of emergency across the country. Today, the state of emergency will be lifted for the entire nation. Recently, new infection cases have fallen below 50 for the entire nation, and while it was once nearly 10,000 hospitalized cases, that has now fallen below 2,000. Our lifting criteria, which has been set on extremely strict level compared to the world, has been met nationwide. And we're taking one last break now, but stay with us for more. Welcome back to From the South. The Palestinian government is ending its 2-month lockdown in the occupied West Bank. Prime Minister Mohammed announced Monday. This comes after the steady decline in new COVID-19 cases.
All ministries and official bodies return to work regularly starting from Wednesday morning, while maintaining full safety measures in each of the ministries. Shops, commercial and industrial facilities and various institutions are allowed to operate normally starting from Tuesday morning, while maintaining safety procedures. Mosques and churches will open for dawn prayers tomorrow on Tuesday, so that we can give them an opportunity to disinfect, provided that worshippers come with their own face mask and prayer mats, as well as maintaining social distances between them, and as long as ablution is not done in the mosque's premises.
The African Union has announced it hopes to raise $1 million for its COVID-19 response fund on Africa Day. Established by the chairperson of the AU Commission, Moussa Faki Mahamat, in March, the COVID-19 Response Fund aims to strengthen regional response to COVID-19 and mitigates its socio-economic and humanitarian impact. The AU statement reads like this: This African Day, May the 25th, all African people of Africa, descent and friends of Africa are encouraged to give a little to the fund. Contributions can be made in any currency and will be automatically converted into US dollars. The number of confirmed COVID-19 cases across the African continent rose to 107,412 as of Sunday morning.
Ministers of Health have discussed and agreed on a continental strategy.
The African Union Commission organized a virtual conference on Monday to give impetus to their stated goal of silencing the guns in Africa, which was the AU's theme for 2020. The regional body also seeks to strengthen collaborative efforts among member states, regional economic communities, civil society organizations, and the private sector to take ownership of the provisions contained in the Silencing the Guns initiative. The African Day session of the AU opened up on Monday with a speech by Moussa Faki Mahamat, who recalled that despite significant progress, Africa continues to be affected by poverty and violence.
The African Union, a masterclass in cooperation.
It's unfortunate. There are all kinds of powers who like to denigrate China, who like to put China in a hole, who are even probably jealous of China's rise. So that is to be expected. However, it is for us to act together timelessly in a transparent manner, and it is transparency that dispels all kinds of defamation. Truth, transparency, openness, governance are the undergirds of stability and progress and friendship.
While Europe was experiencing its dark ages, a period of intellectual, cultural, and economic regression from the 6th to the 13th centuries, Africans were experiencing an almost continent-wide renaissance after the decline of the Nile Valley civilizations of Egypt. Let's take a look at some of the most representative peoples of those times. Unlike Europe, the African Middle Age was a period of cultural splendor south of the Mediterranean. However, centuries later, European colonization through the plundering of mineral and human wealth turned cities into villages and African culture into the folklore of the novel savage stereotype. A land plagued with beasts and diseases, both cultural and apocryphal. The great African civilizations, however, left humanity inexhaustible sources of wisdom and civility, yet to be discovered. Far west, the Kingdom of Ghana, also known as Wagaru, existed in the period between the 10th and 11th centuries, and it was located in southeastern Mauritania, western Mali, and eastern Senegal. The founders of the empire were traders who capitalized on the vibrant desert trading route known as the Soninke. The Soninke developed a monarchy, resulting in the kingdom growing in political and military might, and also has sophisticated methods of administration and taxation. Not far from there, the Mali Empire was one of the greatest African empires that existed between the 13th and the 17th centuries. At the time, it had the second largest army on earth, only after that of the Mongol army in China. The Mali Empire had over 400 cities and controlled the city of Timbuktu, one of the world's leaders in science, mathematics, medicine, law, astronomy, and architecture. Far south in the continent existed one of the most impressive monuments in sub-Saharan Africa, the Great Zimbabwe, an imposing collection of stacked boulder stone towers and defensive walls assembled from cut granite blocks. The kingdom ruled over a large chunk of modern-day Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique. The fortress city of the Great Zimbabwe was mysteriously abandoned sometimes in the 15th century after the kingdom went into decline. But in its heyday, it was home to an estimated 20,000 people. Sam Nujoma is a Namibian revolutionary, anti-apartheid activist and politician who served 3 terms as the first president of Namibia from 1990 to 2005. In 1960, Nujoma was a founding member of the first president of the Southwest African People's Organization, SWAPO. When Namibia finally achieved independence in 1990, holding its first democratic elections, SWAPO won a majority and Nujoma was elected as the country's first president. He was re-elected for 2 more terms in 1994 and 1999. Nujoma retired as SWAPO party president on 30 November 2007.
Selling the country for money. How do you sell a country for money? A country is for the people. It's there to stay. In fact, Namibia doesn't belong to us alone. Namibia belongs to the African continent. It belongs to Zambia. It belongs to Angola. It belongs to Algeria. In as much as Zambia belongs to us.
And the cultural roots of the African continent are present in almost all regions of the world, the Caribbean being a clear example. As part of the celebration for African Day, several Cuban artists dedicated a song to this land. With this performance, we have come to an end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Ernesto Dominguez. Thank you for watching.
Yeah.